Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call the meeting of the Richmond City Council for Monday, April 8th, 2024 to order. May I have a motion on the minutes? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Madam Clerk, any agenda additions and deletions?
Yes, Your Worship, there is an agenda addition, and it'll be for item 9A. This is an item arising out of closed council, and it's related to the potential disposition of 8180 Leslie Road in relation to a rezoning application, and the recommendation is distributed to council on table.
All right. May I have a motion on the revised agenda? Moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, carried. And then I'm going to call forward Liesl Yacht to make an introduction of a video.
It's my pleasure to be here today to present our annual Arts Year in Review. As in previous years, we have a highlights video in which we summarize some of the many activities and achievements of 2023.
All right.
Richmond Arts Services is guided by Artworks, Richmond Arts Strategy,
which envisions an art scene that animates our city every day, offers rich arts education and experiences, festivals and events,
fosters social connections and wellness, builds arts and culture leadership, and provides creative spaces.
By connecting highlights from 2023 with the 5 strategic directions of the art strategy, this video will illustrate how art works in Richmond.
With hundreds of courses, 7 resident art groups, the Children's Art Festival, art exhibitions, and more, the Richmond Arts Centre is a leader in the field of accessible professional arts education and community arts development.
In the Richmond Media Lab, 43 members of the free Richmond Youth Media Program logged almost 3,300 hours learning media skills and putting them to creative use, such as participating in the production of the annual Richmond Remembers live video simulcast.
In addition, Public Arts Engaging Artists in the Community program brought meaningful hands-on experiences that explore a range of themes from emergency preparedness to the effects of climate change on local ecology.
2023's Richmond Art Gallery exhibitions attracted more than 20,000 visits and presented the work of 349 artists this year with 7 shows, including Art Rich and the long-awaited return of the International Male Art Exhibition that attracted works by 288 artists from 32 countries.
As well, in February, the annual Black History Month exhibition returned to the Cultural Centre Rotunda, and in July and August, Pride Week offered 3 free artful events in addition to the annual Pride Stairs painting activity.
In order to strengthen the infrastructure of Richmond's arts and culture organizations and support a wide range of creative activity, the 2023 Arts and Culture Grants Program invested more than $124,000 through operating and project assistance grants to 21 nonprofit arts organizations.
As well, the Art at Work series offered 7 free professional development workshops to artists and art organizations on a range of topics from conservation practices to tax basics to grant writing.
Meanwhile, the Art Gallery's Artist Salon series offered 8 well-attended gatherings connecting emerging and established artists to share experiences, skills, and knowledge.
Richmond's signature festivals showcased local artists with the annual Steveston Salmon Festival, Richmond Cherry Blossom Festival, and Maritime Festival. Richmond Arts Awards recipients were celebrated on stage at the Gateway Theatre.
The city won the Creative City Network of Canada Award of Excellence for Thomas Cannell's artwork Sea to Sky, and Culture Days, with 62 artists and organizations presenting 93 free activities, was named the #1 community in BC, ranking 3rd nationally for mid-sized cities.
In 2023, the Richmond Olympic Oval Public Art Program was completed with the installation of Taifa, a majestic marker and symbol of the community's connection to water.
There were 22 Richmond-based artists commissioned for public artworks along No. 3 Road and beyond throughout the city.
And for 4 months, the Richmond Cultural Center hosted a site-responsive installation by Métis artist Tracy May Chambers, whose ongoing project, Hope and Healing Canada, illustrated the interconnections between Indigenous people and settlers with large-scale works of crochet, knit, and woven red yarn.
And of course, the city's community mural program boasted 5 new works this year, including Gil Netter at Night by Mark Anderson.
The Richmond Art Strategy guides decision-making to empower ideas, people, and resources around a shared vision, led by the guiding principles of excellence,
Sustainability,
creativity,
accessibility,
inclusivity,
community building,
and celebration.
The arts help us to achieve community goals in economic development, health, and well-being, as we boast a richly diverse and multifaceted community.
And they are essential to Richmond's aspiration to be the most appealing, livable, and well-managed community in Canada.
Okay, well, thank you very much to everybody who helped to put that together and the entire arts community. That's very impressive. Now, may I have a motion to resolve in the Committee of the Whole to hear delegations on items that are on the agenda? Moving to second. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Are there any delegations, any people wishing to speak to items that are on the agenda? D. Whalen, come forward. Anyone else? Okay. In case there are others, you know the drill. Introduce yourself. You've got 5 minutes.
I know the routine. Thank you.
Tell us which one you want to address.
My name is Deirdre Whalen, the president of the Richmond Poverty Reduction Coalition, and I'd like to speak on item number 12, which is the low-end market rental program and lemur unit management. We're pleased that the work that we've engaged in for the last 2 years, which included research, a postcard campaign, and 3 submissions to the city, has had some effect, and that some of our recommendations have been taken into consideration with the staff report. So we're very pleased with the progress, and this points the way forward. We understand that the staff recommendations have been amended a little bit so that any nonprofit housing organization may be considered as being the third party to manage lemur, and we're good with that. We think it makes sense, and as long as there's regular mandated reporting requirements as part of the contract. A couple of other things we wanted to talk about. Secondly, we appreciate the recommendation that the Lemur Bulletin and the Affordable Housing Guide that are available on the website should be amended. This would be to separate the past and present Lemur units. The past units that were tenanted before 2017 were under a different kind of a guideline and a threshold with the BC housing income limits, and the present units are under the present framework. And the difference in rents is quite stark, and it is confusing to us, and I'm sure it would be confusing to other people just looking on the website. So we would appreciate those being separated so it's easier to understand. Thirdly, we understand that there is an upcoming lemur review, and we want to ensure that any changes to income thresholds and maximum rents are staying in line or being considered with low-income renters' ability to pay. You know that in June 2024, the minimum wage goes up to $17.40 an hour, and if you say that a person working minimum wage, 2,000 hours a year, it's about $34,000 gross pay. So, and affordable housing, if it's 30% of that, then it's about $10,200 per year. So we wanted you to consider that and take that into consideration when you're working on income thresholds and also maximum rent. And of course, people on income assistance and persons with disability and seniors, single parents, sometimes they make even less. So that should be considered too. These are the people that truly need lemur units, and we hope you consider that. And finally, we understand that you're going to come up with some criteria, made enrichment criteria for tenancy, and I think part of that was part of this other staff report, and that they would be developed, and we would like to ensure that what we've advocated for a long time, is that people with lived experience of whatever issue is being discussed are also part of that decision-making group. So we'd be happy to work with you on that. As a matter of fact, our housing committee recently, we did have a discussion on the criteria for tenancy, and yeah, we'd be willing to work with you and share that information. For instance, 3 years income, yeah, we understand that, that's okay. And as well, the need for people who live in Richmond or have a connection to Richmond to be able to stay in Richmond, I think that's important too. If people have to move away, then they have to connect to all of these other services. So if you've had a connection or your family's in Richmond, those are things that should be considered too. So thank you very much. Thanks. When we started this project, this campaign about 2 years ago, we thought that it would be as successful as a solar eclipse. And what do you know? We managed to get the point across, and I'm really pleased.
All right, we have a question from Councillor Day.
Thank you very much. I was reading this list that we got of affordable housing options, Brightside Homes, More Than a Roof, metrovan.org, and then it was suggested that any housing society chosen by Richmond should be a member of the BCNPHA. Do you want to tell me a little bit more about that?
BC Nonprofit Housing Association is a nonprofit that works together with other nonprofit housing societies to provide all kinds of resources and insurance and ways that they can do things collectively. They also are an advocate group. They advocate to senior levels of government. So it would be an asset for a housing society to belong to that association. One that I can think of that is here, they have 3 developments here, is affordable housing societies. Sounds like affordable housing societies. They have over 6,000 units across all of Metro Vancouver. 3 developments are right here in Richmond. One of them is Ivan Franco that they manage, and they're very well regarded. So if you're thinking of a third party, there's a number of them out there. Affordable housing, Brightside. If they aren't in Richmond, they could come to Richmond. There are some that are already in Richmond that could be considered.
That's great. So the BCNPHA is not an oversight, it's more a supportive group?
Yes, that's right. Yes, information, resources, ways they can work together. They have landlord, what do you call it, renos. If they're doing renos in a development, they have ways that they can help you get through all of that. Insurance, they can all come together and then get insurance together. It's a lot cheaper than doing it on your own. So it's a big nonprofit organization that provides all kinds of support and resources to
Great.
nonprofit housing societies.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other parties who wish to delegate on items on the agenda? Anyone else?
Move to rise and report.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, post carried. That brings us to the consent agenda. There are 2 items that have been taken off the consent agenda, which we'll deal with separately. One is on Leslie Road. The other one is the Land Oval Development matter on Elmbridge. So taking those off, we've got the receipt of committee minutes, the Arts Services Year in Review, the Richmond Accessibility Plan for 2023-33, application by Puni Group for a temporary commercial use permit at 13651 Bridgeport Road, and low-end market rental housing program, and the Lemur unit management. May I have a motion to adopt those by general consent? Moved and seconded. Councillor McNulty.
Thank you, Worship. Just want to comment briefly on a couple of them. First of all, the Arts Year in Review, thank you very much. I have a question of staff. A great video, and I think it shows that the community is recognizing the value of the arts and the fact that it's rich and diverse and with a variety seen from that video, the demographics especially, etc. So we're blessed in all areas in the arts, one of our strongest areas in the community. I have a question for the record. About 5 months ago, a group came forward, the Arts Coalition came forward to ask for monies for an economic study, $75,000, and it was on this year's budget, but we were able to find it. And what is the status of that, and is it done?
Through the mayor to Councillor McNulty, the terms of reference for the Arts Facilities Needs Assessment is being prepared, and staff expect to be able to issue this to tender to begin the procurement process for a consultant in the next few weeks.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Your Worship, because to me, I think we need to know that the arts are a huge economic driver within the community as much as, and it probably much more than sports. And I think knowing that, but it's an investment in our community, especially when the arts are the heart and soul of the community. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to get that going as soon as possible. That's why we moved up the monies in support of council. Your Worship, Richmond Accessibility Plan, I'm really happy to see that it's here, adopted. We're following provincial guidelines. We're ahead. I mentioned the accessibility group that Richmond has the other night at the housing meeting that committee that I sit on, and talked about the diversity and universal housing and universal guidelines, and what things were happening, especially when a lot of things were started here in Richmond. People don't remember, and I hope you do remember the people of like Francis Clark, a real pioneer in housing development, for example, and accessibility, and also our own Rick Hansen. Within our community, we have two powerhouses, and they're leading the charge all the way across this nation, and very pleased to it. And if you look at, and I believe our committee is very, very unique. When you look at on page 105, the members of the committee and the issues that they have covered, and then what the strengths that they bring to the table, it's just absolutely amazing. And I know in the other communities, they're members of the community with a balance, but I think ours is a little bit stronger. The other thing I wanted to mention, Your Worship, with regard to the, as a delegation brought forward, low-income and management, I think one of the things that I'm going to support the report, but it's not all kumbaya. I think we're going to have to work hard when we look at 280, et cetera. We want to have goals and objectives, but we also want to be in control. One of the things that we kept hearing in the community is Richmond people can't get in there. And as you well know, BC housing rules are you go to the list, the provincial list. Well, you have no idea if anybody from Richmond's on it or they're all Richmondites. And they take, and the last count I had from professional staff at Metro Vancouver, there were 1,836 people on that list. Who is on there first? If we should have housing in Richmond, they will get Richmond. If they're number two and have housing in Richmond, they will get Richmond. So it doesn't guarantee, and that's something I think we've got to look at. If we're going to guarantee people from Richmond getting opportunities, whether it be first responders or anybody to be able to come in, low-income seniors, whoever, I think we're going to have to look at that very carefully. And does this, my question here was, does this really do what we want? And is this the path to what we wanted to achieve, especially with the input that we've been hearing from the community, that we want Richmond people there? And I'm hoping that it does. And we'll see what the providers come up with and what staff come back with. So it'll be interesting, Your Worship, to get that. But I really think we have to go ahead with this, and we should have done it years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Worship. I too will be supporting everything on tonight's consent agenda. I just want to refer the Richmond Accessibility Plan 2023 to 2033 to the School Board Council Liaison Committee, because one of the processes that we're going to do is partner with other groups, other stakeholders, one of which is the school board, and I think it's good if the school board themselves, the trustees, see it and understand what it is we're working on, so that we can work together even better.
All right. Councillor Wolf.
Your Worship, I'll speak just on two items. Item number 8, the Richmond Accessibility Plan. As I asked in committee, our enhanced strategy does meet the BC standard and national standards, and more to come on the universal design principles and a potential accessibility certification with the Rick Hansen Foundation to come. So that was pleasing progress in all regards. And then item number 12, just a couple of questions to staff based on the delegation on item 12, the low-end market rental program and management. I just want to know if staff heard and have any comments right now on those potential changes that we could be making to separate the two types of lemur before and after 2017 on the bulletin and our guide, as well as the consideration for the income threshold and the tendency, because I know we've talked about these table groups that are intended to have people with lived experiences, but at the time being don't. Yeah.
Through your worship to Councillor Wolf, we will, I guess a couple pieces. So we will certainly go back and look at the tenant selection. So we'll have an expression of interest and look at candidate tenants. We'll certainly engage BCN, PHA in running that expression of interest. And sorry, Mr. Chair, what was the other question?
Through the chair, my other questions were the separation of the two types of lemur for before and after the 2017 timeline on our bulletin and on our guide.
Through you, your worship to Councillor Wolf, yes. So I'm in the process right now of actually making those distinctions, and we'll update the guide in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thanks.
Councillor Heed, you might as well stay. My questions are just related to the lemur, and I'm obviously going to support it. But whether Mr. Newman can answer this or the city solicitor, and this it relates to the assets of an individual that may have come into lemur. I understand that we're going to look at the income over, or we want to look at the income over 3 years, but there is some mention in this report by you, Mr. Newman, that refers to the Freedom of Information Protection and Privacy Act. So this, the best way to understand this is I'll give you a scenario. If an individual has a piece of property, they sell that piece of property for $2 million, they put that $2 million asset into the son's name, and then they apply for lemur because they don't show any assets whatsoever and they don't show any income above the threshold. So I guess the question is, are we going to be able to find that out over freedom of information? Do we have the ability to do that? Or this is an area that we can't go to? Because the memo is unclear. It's kind of the city solicitor will set the parameters for it.
Through your worship to Councillor Heed, ultimately, if an applicant misrepresents their financial status, then that is an issue that we can pursue other remedies beyond freedom of information and protection of privacy. There are discovery options available, but that would involve legal proceedings. So there's not much more I can say in an open meeting, but there are other avenues. If someone has misrepresented, as I said, their financial circumstances to avail themselves of a program that they would otherwise not be entitled to, then there is redress.
There's no way of us preempting that somehow. We would just have to wait for the information, whatever way the information made it to us, to actually do some legal proceeding against the individual or some investigation with respect to that?
Options, availability of remedies to obtain information through freedom of information is limited. And so the only other recourse are the rules of discovery, which are triggered by court proceedings. And as I said, that would be an avenue if there's at least some information to support the view that there has been a misrepresentation of the financial means of an applicant.
So when I look at this particular report, and it does mention that you have the ability to use your discretion to implement or amend additions with respect to the appendix that's attached here. But would that be something that you would inquire about, or is what you're telling me is pretty well absolute?
There is no, through your worship, the councillor, there isn't an absolute. I'm speaking in generalities. Obviously, if there's information has been attested to as part of our due diligence to see that somebody's met the criteria, and we're of the view, based on other information that has come to light, that that was a false attestation, then we would pursue potentially legal proceedings and the remedies that follow from that. But again, this is an open meeting, and I'm reluctant to say more.
But the obligation would be for us to do it, not necessarily the person that owns the lemur unit or the development company that owns the lemur unit.
We would look to contractual obligations to enforce them, but in the event that they aren't available with the sufficient strength, then we will look at other avenues of the nature I just described.
And I'll just finish up, Mayor. It's just that I think the due diligence that we have to do with respect to this, whether we have a third party that's looking after the lemur and, as Councillor McNulty said, ensuring that people that are in Richmond in need of this type of housing are the ones that get it. But the other part of that is to ensure the people that actually need it because of their financial circumstances are the ones that get it. Thank you.
Councillor Hobbs?
Thank you, and through the chair, just two quick comments, and they've already been commented on, but I think they merit more comments. And the first one is on number 7, the Art Services in Review 2023. I mean, when you look at it, its strategies are all being carried out to various degrees. Engaging the community is very important, and activating public spaces is also very important. But it's good to know that these things specifically address and support the city's strategic plan. So when you look at that, you can see what it supports in our overall plan, which is things like vibrancy and resiliency and activity in the community. So the video said a lot, and I just think it's worth mentioning. The other thing that I want to mention as well, and it's been commented on too, is number 8, and that's the accessibility plan. That is partly, or the result of provincial legislation in 2021, June of 2021. But it's important to know that Richmond, as has been mentioned, I think by Councillor McNulty, has been doing a lot of this work already. 2 of the 3 goals have already been accomplished by Richmond, and the goals and the strategic pillars that are in the plan will build on work that's already been done. And that, again, supports the city's strategic plan that we have in place in terms of creating a healthy community, a vibrant community, and one that's accessible to people regardless of their situation in life. So both very strong reports, a lot of work done by staff, and I just wanted to mention those. And of course, I'll be supporting everything on the consent agenda. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Day.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we changed the motion from what was originally written. When we originally got the report, it stated that should discussions with BC Housing not envision that the organization as sole manager and operator of existing and future lemurs, that staff then be authorized to explore alternative opportunities. So the motion that you see before you is that staff be authorized to have an expression of interest to explore opportunities with independent organizations. And I have a list here that maybe Councillor Wolf can pass down of really great organizations. And Ms. Whalen earlier spoke to a number of them. The Affordable Housing Societies has 3 complexes in Richmond, 6,000 units in total throughout Metro Vancouver. So there are really great housing operators out there. Because no offense to BC Housing, but I pulled up the housing registry form, and it really doesn't do what we needed to do for Richmond, because we have to and will look for people that are lifelong Richmond residents and have a history here and need to be living in Richmond. And I noticed in this application from BC Housing that, and I have to ask Tony, our lawyer here, it says here that, one sec. it says that you can ask for copies of recent bank summaries. Would it be possible to ask for 3 years of bank summaries so that we can be sure that, as Councillor Heed pointed out, that they didn't just sell the house last month and put all the money in their son's name?
Through your worship, to Councillor Day, yes, that is available. That is an option.
Because we're writing this, so we can make it any way that we want it to be. And it says in the BC Housing application that in accordance with section of the Freedom of Information and Protection and Privacy Act, that the information on this application may be shared with other affordable housing providers in order to increase our opportunities to rent geared to income housing. So they're doing it. So I don't see why we can't. It only makes sense to make sure that we have, the proper information. And, if they don't want to share it, well, then they can find their own place to rent, because this is only for people who really, truly need it. And I believe they would be happy to share that information. My question of staff is that should someone be fraudulent, that they lie, and we don't catch them right away, maybe it takes a year or two, can they be charged with fraud? And what could the repercussions be?
Through your worship to Councillor Day, fraud in the criminal code sense would be a matter for Crown prosecution as opposed to city staff. There can be recommendations made if something meets the threshold in City Council's view that a fraud has been perpetrated. But ultimately, the decision to lay charges, it does not rest with council, that rests with the Attorney General. Having said that, in my reply to the questions posed by Councillor Heed, there are other civil remedies available which the City Council could authorize staff to pursue in the event somebody falsely attests to their financial means, and we would seek remedy from the courts in civil proceeding context.
Good. Well, it's funny enough, of all the people in Richmond that came to me, I had 3 different developers come up to me and say, why can't you just create a vetted group of people? So we make a simple phone call and we get the tenants. It's so hard for us to be able to manage this and to know who is, legitimate and who isn't. So I was really surprised by that, but I think for them, it's very difficult for them to be building and managing properties and at the same time trying to be social workers. So I think that doing this is going to be a load off their minds as well, and it's going to help us to make sure that the people that all of our outreach workers and all of our societies that we have here in Richmond have gotten to know, and they know these people are for real, and they can recommend them and put them on a list that is pre-vetted. So I'm really pleased that we're finally going in this direction. When I think it was a year and a half ago, we were presented with a list on our website of the lemur operators, and there was like Mr. Fung from so-and-so real estate agency, and it was just a list of hodgepodge people, not even organizations, and I didn't realize that that was what we were using, and now we can get it right. So I'm really excited to support this. Thank you.
All right, with that, we're going to call the question on the consent agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Then we have the 2 items that are taken off the consent agenda. We'll turn it to Councillor McNulty, Chair of Planning, for number 9.
Thank you, Worship. We have 2 matters here. The first one is an application by Billiard Architect and Company for rezoning at 8180, 8200, 2040, 6080, and 8300 Leslie Road from single detached RS1E zone to the light industrial office limited commercial Z121 Aberdeen Village City Center Zone and school district institutional use. And the recommendation is to be introduced and given first reading. And as well, Your Worship, 9A would be that council support the disposition of 8180 Leslie Road, which was brought from the closed session this morning. And so I would move those both.
So it's moved and seconded, but do you want to tell us the rest of the motion, the sale price for the property and the rest of it, the administrative part? It's for $600,000.
Okay, we'll, on 9A, we would add the administration of it, and I have it here. Sorry, Your Worship, I don't have it.
Number 3.
Yeah, right in front of me, so we'll,
Maybe I could say that
yeah, just while you've got it.
Yeah, the city disposed of 8180 Leslie Road to a numbered company or their delegates as part of a comprehensive development for $600,000 plus applicable taxes, and then the usual administration of that.
Administration, go
So
on.
that, you're moving that,
I'm moving that.
okay? Is it seconded? It's moved and seconded, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a development on Leslie Road with a 6-story non-residential industrial commercial mixed-use strata building, and the developer has created that. And with that, it's a straightforward development from my point of view, Your Worship, making their nominal contributions to public art, community amenities. We're getting a 10-meter wide linear park on Hazelbridge Way, and which will open that up a little bit. And as a result of public consultation, signage has been put up there accordingly so that everybody has had an opportunity from the public to see that. We really haven't had any concerns upon that. They will be following the aircraft noise on it, and the provision fits in right in that area. And interestingly enough, further on Leslie Road, Your Worship, we have commercial and we also have industrial, very light industrial and clean industrial across the street to the west of it. So with that, I support it 100% to go forward.
All right, we'll call on Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. Asked to have this one removed as I'm not a voting member on the Planning Committee, but I did attend the recent discussion that this item brought forward. I would like to actually refer this back to staff and the specific, no need it to be seconded, but what I would like it to be referred back for is to have staff work with the developer to secure a way to retain 2 of the 10 city trees identified, the city tree number 1 and the city tree number 256. So if that could be seconded, then I'll speak to it.
I'll second that.
Thanks. So I will, again, I'm not, as opposed to just opposing this, I think there's a correction that we could make going forward here is when a city tree, also referred sometimes in this case as a street tree, is deemed to be removed, it doesn't get this equal treatment that the on-site trees are getting. So the details about them, are they significant or not? So when I attended the Planning Committee and then I went to the site to visit, and I looked for the 32 trees on site, 2 of which are significant cedars. I identified an even more significant cedar, but it wasn't in the report. So if members here want to look at the map on our page 231, it's attachment 5 in this report. It's the only map that clearly shows all the trees in question, so the 32 on site and the 10 street trees are all to go. They all have an X. And so the 2 trees I specified are on the left side of the proposed building. So near the top on this page, you can see the largest circle is for tree 256, and it has CI in brackets. And then the lower one on that property, on the property line on Leslie Road, CI1, is also a fairly large circle around it because it's a large tree. So those are not considered significant trees. Therefore, the developer doesn't have to replace these trees with a 3-to-1 ratio. They fall outside of that. They're in the exempt component of our bylaw. And I would like staff to be given direction to work with the developer to retain these. I did read the report, and it mentions that the other significant trees, 260 and 250, would be hard to retain because they're on a hedgerow right in the middle of where the building would go. I think with innovation, creativity, we could work around that, but I'll leave it alone and just say let's retain the existing city trees. And the other fact I'll just mention now, in case this doesn't get passed, I don't have to repeat myself later. The developer is intending to have, they're supposed to replace all their on-site trees with 66 trees. Yet again, we see a development where they're only able to fit a fraction of that, only 11 of the 66 trees. So this development, if you look on a topographical map, satellite map of Richmond Center, this is, again, I've said this before because the last ones are gone, this is one of the most treed dense areas left in the city center. If you just take a look at it, and again, it's being targeted, and so there'll be less and less of these in the future as the shifting baseline goes forward, and there's less to talk about of these existing trees because there's just not going to be any. So this is a potential where we could get a development in that densifies away from the existing natural features, but what's in front of us does not do that.
All right, Councillor Galanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. And yeah, you know, this development is definitely where we're moving with this in this area and has a lot of good things about it. But as Councillor Wolf pointed out, these two significant trees, so they're not called significant trees because they're not on the property, they're on the city boulevard. So they don't fall under the tree bylaw. So they don't get that label of significant trees and have to do the 3-to-1 planning, as Councillor Wolf pointed out. But he didn't point out just how large this tree is, specifically the 256 CI that you see. That is a western red cedar, which is our native, really important wildlife tree, and it's 175 centimeters, whereas the two significant cedars that are on the property are 94 and 98, respectively, tree 250 and 266. So this is 1.5, it's significantly larger than the significant trees. So it could be really spectacular. And I was just thinking about, when you see an awesome glass atrium with a tree in the, or it could be part of the entranceway, or however, if staff could work with the applicant, it's pretty early on here, to figure out a way to keep even just the cedar, if not the cypress that Councillor Wolf's referring to. It could just be an awesome continuation of our wildlife path throughout the city. We really, even Councillor Steve said, I'm not opposed to taking down trees for developments, and he's like, but we got to keep the significant ones, and we need to figure out a way to do that. So, even an option of a height variance so that the building could be just as large with a height variance in order to retain that tree. I think we could be creative and it could be awesome. So I would definitely support the referral. I think that it wouldn't take too long to take a look at it and see what they can come up with, and it could push the public hearing back another month.
Councillor Day, on merits of referral.
Yeah, I'd like to ask staff a question. I'm looking at these trees, C1 and C256. And I'm looking at the drawing of the development on page 229, and it shows that there will be trees all along Leslie Road, quite a few actually. And I'm just wondering, why could we not save the ones that are already there instead of tearing them down and putting in new ones? I don't understand the rationale for that.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Day. Off-site trees are reviewed by the city's park department staff. City park staff did review all of the trees, the arborist reports, and the servicing requirements. The 10 city trees being recommended for removal from this area include, as noted, two significantly large trees, a 110 centimeter cypress and a 175 centimeter diameter western red cedar. All 10 trees are not able to be retained due to the extent of the roadworks needed. I'd like to note that a 3-to-1 tree replacement ratio for these two larger trees is being achieved as part of the tree compensation cash contribution. So they were considered by park staff, and that tree compensation contribution is being secured through the rezoning.
You said that those two trees, in particular, the two significant Richmond City trees, because of road work, you couldn't move it slightly over to the north side of Leslie? Like I'm assuming you're talking about sewers or other things that are in the ground, yeah?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, we're talking above grade works. So right now, along this portion of Leslie Road, there is no curb, gutter, sidewalk. As part of this redevelopment, the road is widened to accommodate the type of traffic that is anticipated. There is the introduction of a new curb, gutter, boulevard, sidewalk, and bike lane. Given the location of these trees and the tree protection barriers or the tree protection zones that would be required, you would not be able to accommodate any of those roadworks within that area. So you would either be foregoing the bike lane, sidewalk, grass and treed boulevard. Alternatively, to shift the road network north would require property acquisition on the north side of the road.
So if we gave up the bike lane, could you save the trees?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, it's unlikely that you could do any road work within any proximity to these trees. So as an example, the tree protection zone around tree CI number 1 is approximately 6.6 meters from the base. That tree is approximately 3 meters off the pavement currently. So you would not be able to do any of the road works within the tree protection zone. You'd either have to swing all of that work significantly into the site or move it to the north, which would require additional road right-of-way. With respect to the cedar tree, that cedar tree is also part of the hedgerow. In order to retain that tree, you'd need to retain the entire hedgerow.
Okay, because like the tree I'm thinking of right now is at Canby and number 4 Road. It's that massive, huge tree. And we built around that tree, and I'm glad that we did, because every time I drive by, I'm so glad that we saved it. We couldn't maybe have the tree in between the road and the sidewalk and have the sidewalk, like you say, build it further into the property.
Through the chair, based on our analysis currently, you would not be able to do any of the roadworks within those areas.
All right, let's call the question then on the referral. All those in favor? Those opposed? So it's defeated with Councillors McNulty, Liu, Hobbs, Heed, and I'm not sure about Councillor Au, who is on the line. Is Councillor Au on the line?
Yes.
And on...
Can you hear me?
Yes. On referral?
Yes.
There's no discussion. We've called the question. Are you in favor or opposed?
In favor of referrals.
Okay. So it's the same, and myself opposed. So that is defeated. And I'm going to go to the call the question then on the main motion. All those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried with Councillors Wolf and Galanders opposed. Councillor Au?
Opposed.
Okay, with Councillor Au opposed. So that is carried. Then turning to Councillor McNulty for number 11, the Landa Oval Development.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. The request is to extend the rezoning and adoption deadline for the application of Land Oval Developments Limited at 6851, 6870 Ambridge Way. And the recommendation from Planning Committee is that the rezoning adoption extension request by Land Development be granted and that the rezoning considerations, which is item 25, be revised to required bylaw 1 of 423 and be adopted on and or before June the 10th, 2024. And so moved. So moved.
Okay, so it's moved and seconded. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the reason that this group asked for an extension in that they have not been able to move along on it, and the adoption is...
Sorry, I just turned you.
Okay. The extension is for the in-stream provision regarding, at the moment, a 10% low-end market lemur rental. In the in-stream provision for assuming it along with their market rental. And they've asked for approximately 2 more months to June 10 so that they can get their various things in order. Because if they don't, they will have to increase the lemur rate to 15% and also 15% market rental. And as a result of that, it would have devastating financial arrangements on the project. But given on the current situation where it is is the developer is contributing a voluntary cash contribution of over $6 million. As you know, we've been discussed 52 parking stalls used by the Oval in the city during special events, an opportunity with 112 potential hotel jobs and 14,000 square feet of commercial space in that area, and upgrading and various infrastructure, which is necessary, roadways, sewers, and widening of lanes and traffic measures help us on it, and also amenity units. So the benefits are good, but in order to, if you wish, Your Worship, put it this way, to save the project and see that the project go ahead, they're asking for the extension. This is a precedent setting. We've never done this before for these particular reasons. And but this one merits consideration. So that's why I moved it forward.
All right, Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've been opposed to this project for some time, and seems like I'll be opposed to what the Planning Committee put forward, and I did hear the discussion where it went from being the staff recommendation to being the committee's recommendation, polar opposite. I'll just highlight for the public that the recommended option by staff was to deny the applicant's extension request, and I'll just read the one line that is the reason for it. Is that by doing so, it would not be compliant with the in-stream protection applicable to this policy. And you could also just go back 30 minutes or so when we were discussing, some of us were discussing the low-end market rental program and management, because what developments like this, after the date that they were assigned, after April 15th, they're needing to provide the 15% market rental and the 15% lemur. And that is the way of the law here. So I think to gain the benefits that we councillors have identified and have heard from staff, that we should be seeking a project that can comply. I think that, yeah, there's $6 million being floated around and other benefits that the city will get, but we're not going to get what has been identified as a critical priority in the region. So I will not support the flip that committee made, and I will be opposed to what's on the table. Thanks.
Councillor Day.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a couple of questions of staff. In the report, they recommend denying the extension. Is that because the policy requires staff to do that? Only council can override that and allow for the extension?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, yes. As the adoption date is a rezoning consideration, the only body able to grant the extension is City Council.
So your hands were tied behind your back on this one. Do you think that allowing for this 8-week extension will lead to a whole bunch of other applications for extensions?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, there were only 2 applications advanced under the grandfathering provisions for low end of market rental. One of those applications has already been withdrawn from the city, so this is the only application that has grandfathering provisions related to low end of market rental housing. There are 4 other rezoning applications that do have rezoning adoption deadlines later this year. 3 of those applications have rezoning adoption deadlines in June and July related to market rental housing. The 4th application is a rezoning application for stacked townhouses in the Spires area, where the area plan was subsequently changed to require apartment-style development with rental housing inclusion. It is possible that those applications could come forward and seek similar extensions. Currently, staff are working with all those developers to advance to rezoning adoption before the applicable deadlines.
Okay, so this property, I understand it was purchased in 2019. It's been 5 years in the works. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, and so if I recall, this is the one where the apartment building to the east went, whoa, we don't want you having those trucks coming in and out of the lane. It's going to be too disruptive. And there was, I would think it was a 6-month delay while the entire project was redesigned to bring everything inside the property and to eliminate the problem with delivery trucks clogging up the laneway in between the other development.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. There was a direction from council at public hearing to deal with some of those matters raised at public hearing. We responded and the developer amended their project, and that was brought forward generally about 4 to 5 months later for council consideration.
I remember it was quite a change that they came up with. My last question is does Richmond still have the highest occupancy of hotel rooms? And would these hotel rooms bring economic benefit to the city of Richmond?
Through the chair, I can't speak to the specific occupancy rate. However, the developer has identified that the hotel component is a critical component to their project. It's been identified since their purchase of the project in 2019, and I believe they recently secured a specific operator for that hotel operation. So it's been a consistent component of their project.
Yeah. Well, I know that if Tourism Richmond was here, they'd say, yeah, we have the highest occupancy and we desperately need more hotel rooms. Thank you very much.
Councillor Heed.
Yes, originally when I started to look at this, I was, going to voice some opposition to it, but I want to thank staff for explaining it to me, and we had a very good discussion. But I just want to raise a few things here. Alanda is a rather large corporate entity that is built here in Richmond before. They know that we have specific deadlines for them to meet particular projects, and I guess my question to you, Mr. Craig, have they been on time for everything previously that they've done here in Richmond?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, again, it's not typical that a rezoning application would have a hard adoption deadline such as this. It's only in the case where policy is changed and we have a desire to ensure that the projects move forward in a timely manner that this has come into play. In terms of land themselves, yes, they have done a high-density development in this neighborhood. It's at the corner of Gilbert and Elmridge.
Yes, and we can understand the respect is it's going to be a significant financial impact if in fact they have to meet the 15% for lemur and 15% rental. And the other large concern for me, and I think it's been addressed, but I'm going to bring it up, is the fact that although this is precedent setting with respect to this particular case, this does not hold any precedent for, as you mentioned, the 4 possibly others that are in the stream.
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, each application is considered on their own merits. I think should we receive extension requests, those will be brought forward to Planning Committee and Council as this one has. But at present, we do not expect that any of those applications should have trouble meeting the deadline.
And my last question is with respect to the delay, you understand the controversy we had with respect to that laneway and the shadowing and all that, but the delay, what impact did we have on the delay versus the developer?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, I would not say that the delay is of any responsibility of the city. So in order to meet the 12-month adoption deadline, there was considerable amount of work that needed to be done. There really needed to be no periods of inactivity throughout the last 12 months. There was a brief period of inactivity where the city did not receive any information for review from November of 2023 through the end of January of 2024.
Thank you.
Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for this information. So when we brought in the 15% affordable housing, we decided to give a 1-year sort of grandfathering period for things that were already in stream. Now, we chose 1 year because it seemed like a reasonable length of time, given that if the stars aligned and everyone got everything done, nobody went on vacation or had sick kids or anything else, then it would have worked. And staff worked diligently on this, and I don't think we necessarily need to delve into auditing either side, either the applicant or our staff, to see if a ball was dropped, because we did pick kind of an arbitrary number. So it might have also been reasonable had we picked 14 months or 16 months or 18 months to give staff and an applicant a reasonable amount of time to get the work done. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, yes.
Okay, so the fact that we chose arbitrarily this number, 12 months, so to extend it another 2 months is still within a reasonable time frame.
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, yes. However, I would say granting an extension beyond June 10th would not be advisable, as that would also bring into play the 15% market rental.
Correct.
So
Unless something extenuating happens, God willing, nobody gets anything terrible, but if nothing serious happens, then it's reasonable that everyone's going to get the work done in 2 months.
through the chair, yes, we believe all the remaining work can be completed within the 2 months.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hobbs.
Well, thank you, and through the chair, that was the question I was just going to ask about the remaining 2 months. It's a realistic expectation that it'll get done, so thanks for answering that. Thank you also for clarifying the point about precedent, that it's not a binding precedent, it's just a precedent that we're doing it. My concern with this, I just want you to comment on the general economic situation we have in the country and the province and the city right now. Because my concern, and I want to make sure it's a well-founded concern, because I appreciate the initial recommendation from staff and I understand why that was made, because that's the rules that we have in place. But my concern with this development and giving it a couple more months to try and meet its requirements revolves around the fact that if we don't do that, and we are in a housing crisis, the reality is that, I want to get you kind of your professional opinion, that it's a distinct possibility that it might not go ahead at all. Is that a fair understanding on my part?
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, I believe that is a fair assessment, and I believe the applicant said as much at the planning committee meeting, that if the extension was not granted, they would need to rethink the project and question the economic viability.
Yeah, thanks for that. We had a good discussion at planning for sure. And the reason I'll support the extension and the recommendation before us is because it's a 190 room hotel, which I believe we're short of hotel rooms. It's about 321 strata, and it's about 35 lemur. And you might think that we could get more lemur under a different project or something, but the fact is times are changing and we might end up with none. And so I think it is a good project. I liked it when it came through with the changes they made, and I'll be supporting it tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I simply want to comment, hopefully the applicants are here tonight. I do hope they treat this date of June 10th, 2024 seriously, because I don't want to be here on June 10th or 15th thinking about another extension. This is it, as far as I'm concerned. So with that, I'm going to call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried with Councillor Wolf opposed. Okay, so that brings us, just a minute, so that brings us to the public announcements. I do have a few of those. First of all, we have National Volunteer Week from April 14th to the 20th. It's an opportunity to celebrate the valuable contributions of community volunteers who have helped make Richmond such a great place. In 2023, volunteers dedicated over 55,000 hours to various city events, programs, and services. So we want to thank each volunteer for dedicating their time, their expertise, and their enthusiasm to building a connected and vibrant community. If you want to know more about volunteering in Richmond, visit icanhelp.richmond.ca. Then we have the City Centre Association anniversary. The association will mark its 30th anniversary this Saturday, April 13th, a free day of events, performances, food, and arts and crafts. So the celebrations will be from 11:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. at the City Centre Community Centre, 5900 Monroe Boulevard. Then we have World Leisure Day, April 16th. That is a Tuesday, and the city is marking this annual global initiative by encouraging everyone to enjoy some valuable leisure time, whatever that may look like, whether it's physical exercise, reading a book, connecting with friends and family. The day is an opportunity to enjoy leisure in all its forms. So a full listing of World Leisure Day activities is on the city website. And then the city will celebrate Earth Week beginning Saturday, April 20th by hosting a number of free and low-cost programs throughout the city. Over 30 activities, workshops, and educational sessions will promote environmental awareness and conservation at locations such as Terra Nova Park, the Hamilton Community Center, and the Richmond Nature Park. So if you want more information, go to richmond.ca/Earthweek. And finally, we have Sikh Heritage Month. April is Sikh Heritage Month in BC and honors the invaluable contributions Sikhs have made across the province. Richmond has an active and vibrant Sikh community that plays an important role in our way of life and our economy. So we encourage everyone to embrace and explore our city's Sikh culture and history and to work together to create a more inclusive and equitable Richmond. So with that, Madam Clerk, bylaws for adoption.
Thank you, Your Worship. There are 4 bylaws for final adoption with no noted opposition.
Move all 4.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. And Development Permit Panel.
Thank you, Your Worship. There are 2 recommendations for Council. Recommendation 1, that the Chair's report for the Development Permit Panel meetings held on May 10th, 2023 be received for information, and that the recommendations of the panel to authorize the issuance of a development permit for the property located at 9800 Van Horn Way be endorsed and the permit so issued.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. So now may I have a motion to resolve in the Committee of the Whole to hear delegations on non-agenda items? All those in favor, opposed, carried. We have one such delegation, Chak Luen Ho and Abby Yee, to delegate on the Stevenson London Dog Park. So if you could come forward, have a seat here, introduce yourselves, and you've got 5 minutes.
Hi, I'm Chak Luen Ho, and I'm Abel Yee. Hello, Your Worship. Hello, City Council members. I stand before you today not just as a concerned resident, but as a voice for my family and numerous members of our neighborhood. We wanted to speak to you sooner, but we were overshadowed by the consumption site speakers that night. Many of us were unable to attend because staff members prevented additional people from entering. Our concern centers around the development of the off-leash area in our local park. We believe that the park planners have been negligent to the residents who are the most affected by this project. We are aware that the City Council has made changes in an attempt to solve some of those issues. However, we find the current revisions inadequate. According to the city's bylaws, number 8856, our area is designated as a quiet zone with RS1 zoning. Dog barking noises far exceed the upper decibel limits of such zones. We are not convinced that increasing the buffer zone by 7 meters and adding additional berms and trees would be sufficient to solve those issues. We all have experience living with neighbors who have talkative dogs. It is difficult to imagine the impact it will have on our daily lives when such disturbances are further facilitated and concentrated so close to us, particularly for the youth and elderly members of our neighborhood with underlying health conditions. Furthermore, our evaluation of guidelines in other municipalities suggests a misalignment with best practices. With a quick Google search, we found that cities such as Markham, Great Sudbury, and Edmonton have established minimum setback distances substantially greater than what is being proposed here, ranging from 50 to 100 meters. This raises questions about the due diligence underpinning our project's planning. especially when considering Surrey's precedented guidelines, which advise against such residential proximities due to the high potential for conflict. The park proposal also did not take into account residents' photo evidence that the location is already being heavily used by Richmond citizens for recreational purposes. In a previous hearing, a councillor referenced Alexandra Road Park as a successful dog park project that is also near neighboring residences. However, their park is roughly 5 times smaller, and due to its design, only one townhouse is in direct view and within a 15-meter proximity. The residents in that area simply do not face the same noise concerns as we do. The survey also appears to either be misleading or carelessly designed. It shouldn't be a surprise that the majority of residents around the greater neighborhood support the creation of a dog park when the majority of residents are nowhere close to it. What the survey doesn't ask is whether residents are willing to have the park beside their homes or what setback distances they're willing to tolerate. Furthermore, some of the survey results appear to be inaccurate. We have confirmed with over 20 residents on our street who answered negatively to question 10 of the survey, and yet only one vote was recorded. We are not sure how this is possible. Either way, we believe that further direct consultation should have been given to the residents that are directly beside the area. In light of these considerations, we would be pleased if the councillors would take some time to explore some of our suggestions. Our most desired revision is to simply restore the site to its previous greenery. Otherwise, repurposing the site into an exercise or resting area would also be sufficient change. From our research, we believe that option 4 was prematurely dismissed based on outdated public consultations from 2015. The park's landscape and usage have significantly evolved since then. From our daily observations, the London Fields, once active with sporting activities, has become a neglected space that is seldom used. Given this shift, there is an opportunity to revisit option 4 for the dog park's placement. This option allows for an opportunity to revisit for a strategic location at least 50 meters away from residential homes, ensuring both the preservation of residential peace and the efficient use of public land. We would ask the council members to explore relocating the dog park to this area. Ultimately, the establishment of this dog park poses a significant and unwelcome impact on our daily lives. I urge my fellow council members to personally visit the site to fully grasp the implications of this project. And I would then like to respectfully ask whether you would be willing to have the park built near your home.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, I want to know, we've got a couple of questions. Is that for the delegations, Councillor Galanders?
I think mine's going to be for staff.
Okay, Councillor Day.
I just wanted to make sure.
Is that, that's for the delegation?
Yeah. So the plan is to plant a whole bunch of trees on the north side of this, and then also to have a 3-foot berm that, the trees will be planted in and around on this berm. Have you looked at some of the other dog parks in Richmond and compared whether they have A, that kind of landscaping, or B, the same proximity to your yard?
Good evening, Worship and Council members. We've done the research. Actually, none of the dog parks, off-lease dog parks, are that close to the residential properties. And this is the only one. And this is, in terms of size, this one is gigantic.
That's not what you were asked. Please just answer the question. The question was about a berm and some trees on top.
We don't think so.
Okay, all right. And how many neighbors back on to the proposed dog park? How many houses?
Sorry?
How many houses back on to the area that the proposed dog park would be?
Directly would be 10 houses.
10? Okay.
All right, thank you very much. We'll excuse the two of you. We've got some questions for staff. Thank you. Okay, what staff, we'll call forward staff, if you could come forward. So there's a question, first of all, from Councillor Galanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you. The delegation referenced question 10 from the public consultation survey. Have you by chance been able to pull up what that question was? And can you explain what the delegation said that at least 20 people they know responded no to that answer, but only one no was recorded on the survey?
To Your Worship, to Councillor Galanders, yes. Question 10 in the previous survey is asking the following statement best describe me. And there are some options provided. Option number 1, sorry, it's a little small on my screen. I'm going to zoom in a little bit first. Give me a second. Three part of the answers that the survey respondents can choose. Number 1, I support completion of the dog off-leash area at this current location in London Sefton Park, as identified in the London Sefton Park final concept design. Number 2, I do not support the dog off-leash area being constructed at its current location. Or number 3, I am undecided about my preferred location for the dog off-leash area. So in the survey results, 229 select number 1, which is the support. 1 select number 2, and 5 select number 3. Okay. So five respondents were undecided.
Okay, so we did hear from this delegation, and we actually spoke to them a couple of weeks ago, and they showed us that they know that they had a number of at least 10 at the time. I think now they found 20 people who said that they voted for number 2.
Right.
So they didn't support it. So is there a way just to analyze the data again and just report back to us with a memo on the raw data and see where that discrepancy
There's no need. Through your worship to Councillor Galanders, due to the logic of the survey, question 9, which precedes this question, asks whether the respondents support the creation of a permanent dog off-leash area. So only those say that they support the creation of a permanent dog off-leash area at this park would be directed to answer this question number 10. So from this, 237 respondents answered the other question.
Oh,
and this 237 respondents that picked and selected to support construction of a permanent dog off-leash area equals to 72.5% that support this construction.
Right. There was no differentiation between whether it was residents that live right beside it or not.
This is a targeted survey. So what that means is only the nearby residents are allowed to take the survey. So no one from New West or Vancouver.
No, but I mean, there was no differentiation between people who live within 10 meters of the park versus people who live within 100 meters of the park.
Correct. The survey was sent out to approximately 500 meters off the park.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I have another question. How far away are we from this? This is pretty far along now. Unfortunately, when this item came to council was the same night as the supervised consumption site, and these people did try to come and speak and say that they had some concerns. So if they had been able to come in, we would have been able to talk to them and perhaps put a pause on or done something, but we didn't, and we've moved forward. And it's just really unfortunate that that's what happened and that they weren't able to speak that night. And I just
just a minute. Everybody, 130 of them were able to speak, and that included some that weren't on the safe consumption site. So maybe they didn't want to or didn't feel at ease delegating, but they could have.
Well, maybe we need to look into that because we were told that some of them weren't allowed in the building because there was too many people at the time. And
Todd?
Through the chair to Councillor Galanders, in addition to that, you did request that we went back out to further consult in between. Yeah. We did reach out to the neighboring residents, and we did not have anyone take us up on further consultation.
Okay. And so how far along are we as far as when are the trees going to get planted and the berm? Well, the berm's already there. Sorry, the trees. And how far away are we from completion?
Through your worship to Councillor Galanders, according to the memo that staff sent to Mayor and Council this morning or today, staff is halfway basically through construction. Right now, we obviously before trees can be planted into the ground, we need the ground to be enabled. So right now we are preparing the ground in terms of the berm creation, separating more distances and buffers between residences to the future fence area. As well as other works, for example, posts for the fences, foundation work, et cetera, et cetera. So all that is being done right now. We anticipated that the overall completion would be done by early summer. And typically in any landscape project such as this, landscaping would be the last. So trees and shrubs and grass would be the last in the stage.
One more question, through your worship. Is there any precedent or policy or situation where we could complete something and then follow up with the residents 6 months later if there are concerns? Like, have there ever been anything we've done where it's come to light that we need to rethink it, or, this didn't work out? I'm just trying to debate whether, it looks as though we probably should just move forward if we've done so much, unfortunately, and then we could possibly follow up with residents 6 months later and just monitor the noise levels and the decibel levels and see how it's going and consult. Has that ever been done?
Through the chair to Councillor Galanders, like any project, we go through a fairly exhaustive public consultation process at the front. That said, our doors are always open. Our opportunities for public to come out and voice concerns, and we're more than willing to meet with them through the process and after the process.
Can you estimate how much has been spent? What was the original budget and how much of that has been spent to date?
To your worship, the original budget is approximately $250,000. Up to date, we have spent approximately $177,000. The remaining budget would be spent in the remaining work.
All right, so 2/3 approximately.
Approximately 2/3 to 3/4.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. Okay, so in their letter, the residents have said, well, why can't we be 50 meters away from the dog park? And I understand in the drawings that you sent me earlier today that the dog park will be, like the actual beginning of the dog park where the fence is 15 meters. Did you do any research as to how close other dog parks are to residences here in Richmond and even in other cities?
To your worship, to Councillor Day, yes. So staff has done researches. At the same time, this is not the first dog park in the city, obviously. So there are other referencing dog parks, which some of the delegates have spoken about. Alexandra Park, the fenced dog off-leash area is approximately 10 meters away from private properties. And that is not just one townhouse. Townhouses usually don't stand by themselves. So it's rows of townhouses. McCollum Park along Railway Greenway is approximately 21 meters from private residents, mostly detached homes. Steveston Community Park, the fenced dog off-leash area is approximately 10 meters from private properties, and that is senior residences. Garden City Community Park, the dog off-leash area there is approximately 25 meters from private properties, including townhouses across the street, as well as single family on the east side of that dog off-leash area. McLean Park in the Hamilton area, recently we have a temporary pilot dog off-leash project. That's approximately 18 meters from private properties, all of them detached homes.
Oh, so this is kind of our normal then, isn't it? Okay.
Correct.
So again, great drawings and pictures that you guys supplied. I see the berm, which is 11 meters wide and approximately 3 meters tall, the berm that would run all the way on the north side. And then it's got a picture of all these circles. Is that the trees? And how many trees do you anticipate planting, plus all the bushes?
Through your worship, to say yes, these are the trees that we anticipate drawn in circles. And as you can see, that we plan to plant a large number of trees. That includes both coniferous trees, that is evergreen, so that will provide privacy and screening all day over the year, as well as canopy deciduous trees that provides also some sunlight through, so that the shrub planting in the undergrowth would also get some sunlight. So that's a large amount of trees.
So if you look at the picture that these folks sent us, right now they're looking at an open field. They'll be looking at a grove of trees when this is done, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so they're not going to see the dog bark. Will they be able to hear it?
Through your worship to Councillor Day, it's quite interesting that in some researchers that we've heard, it said that the dogs is going to be 85 or 90 or 100 decibel level. Typically speaking, a motorcycle like a Harley Davidson, it's at 85 decibels. According to our noise bylaw 8856, it prohibits any kind of sound made by a dog continuously for any period in excess of 30 minutes. So if there's any barking dog incidents, that should be reported to BCS-PCA. But at the same time, so far in all 14 dog off-leash areas in Richmond, we have not received any one report of noise issue.
Okay, then my last question is, if this is going to go ahead, can we limit the dog hours? Because we don't really want dogs barking at 5 o'clock in the morning. So is it possible to say, no dogs during sleeping time?
Through your worship to Councillor Day, opening hours of our parks are guided by our park bylaw. Certainly, we can look at any exceptions. At the same time, this area does not have any light. So when it's pitch dark, we don't expect people to be using the park.
You're not putting any lighting in then?
There's no lighting installed.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you both. I have a motion to rise and report. All those in favor, opposed, carried. We are now adjourned.